stuff. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Hopefully, my voice is loud enough. The title of tonight's episode is When Science and Religion Shake Hands. And this talk was not inspired out of me just being both entertained and disappointed in debates between atheists and theists on YouTube. One side shapes the unknown based on a book written by the past, and one side shapes the unknown based on a book to be written in the future. Human beings will eventually realize thoughts are like clothing, and you are not your clothes, but your clothes express who you are. In some sense, for me, I found it very fascinating that in every moment my attention orchestrates the architecture of myself, of the idea of myself. And for me, after paying attention to my attention, I found myself between two mirrors, presented within an infinite illusion, as if the mind was at an all-you-can-eat buffet of conception, and when it could see it, it could take it. And our species has had certain rhythms and design forces and certain momentums build up, that as I'm speaking now, the genetics of my ancestry is here with me. My DNA is my ancestry, because they were their DNA. And so the effect is always reminded of its cause, and the cause has nowhere else to look aside from the effect. God and man are two parts of the same coin. They are, how Meister Eckhart said, the same eyes I see God are the same eyes God sees me. When we look at religion and we wonder where is the conceptual allegiance, where is its conceptual allegiance, to what design of existence does it point the fingers of our morality and vision to, and we will see that moment when the realm of disbelief, or let me say it like this, when the armies of disbelief and the armies of belief collide, there will come the remembrance of a war never needed. You see, intensity is necessary for civilization's growth, but not violence. because the same violent intensity could be given to a virtual reality simulation. What that means is in the future, the guy who wanted to just like release his anger would do it in some sort of computerized system. Wars will no longer be had by human beings killing human beings, but it would be like the leaders of nations will start playing video games, where their armies in these video games are the exact replications of their military. For me, what I'm trying to say is that as we have evolved and as we have stepped into the glance of the Homo sapien, the gaze of the Homo sapien, the eyes of the Homo sapien, we find ourselves divided between the known and the unknown. And the purpose of the concept of God was to keep the unknown alive. And so I find that in many ancient traditions, this is not acknowledged, but in any sort of mystical ideology or context, there is a sort of revelation. There is a sort of the unknown moving the known. And so this experience of the unknown moving the known many attempts were made to personalize this. As if the guy saw himself in a world bigger than his eyes could see, and he was like, oh my God, what's moving everything? And in that instance comes the conception of origin. For me, I realized that, like I had heard that your mind can deceive you by making you think that by thinking you are a thought. The mind is an observance, and we, as advanced communicators and pilots of consciousness that navigate their plane of existence consciously, we work until our limbs have become the universe, and then we step out of a system that was empty, only existent by the person that has entered there. So pretty much what I'm saying is like, we are like the eyes of the universe entering a certain room of self-awareness. Sometimes I've often wondered, I'm like, okay, it can't all be kept by conscious intelligence because my heart beats. My heart beats without me being even conscious of it. Before I even knew the concept of a heart, my heart was beating. As life was being present, the past and future were suddenly realized they hadn't entered the room of consciousness first. Your present moment did. You will see all moments within one moment. And then the war of the inner worlds end. You suddenly stop playing with multidimensionality. You stop playing with the concept of spirituality. You want life to reveal itself to you. You don't want to tell it what to reveal. This is why I feel anybody who's searching for truth is in the, mule chasing the carrot on the stick and the rope dynamic. Our intelligence is governed by attention. Our attention acknowledges itself as a spontaneous being, as if like we are in wakefulness. We have awakened to the world, and we have awakened to the world subjectively. That's something some animals have not, but sometimes you can tell. When you see an animal in nature be playful, it begins to move without resistance in the environment. When it moves without resistance in the environment, it's not because it has become a god of the moment and knows everything about the reality. It's because the being has understood the temporary endeavor to be as valuable as the journey itself. This Zen master, Japanese Zen master, Matsuo Basho, has this quote where he says, "The journey itself is my home." As if this dude is not looking for a treasure, just seeking the treasure is like a treasure on its own. It is the access of an experience that was not there in your conscious universe before. And so for me, knowledge is not just what teachers teach in schools or universities. For me, knowledge is how thoroughly the sight of intelligence has engaged with all that it is considered not intelligent. Pretty much, I'm saying if we are atoms thinking, then somebody explain to me um, how an atom can see itself. And you'd be like, okay, billions of years of evolution, bro. And I'll be like, okay, but the way the moment moves, it's as if there are senses of a subtler intelligence present. When I heard the concept of the third eye, a part of the deeper aspects of my existence started laughing. I felt like an echo of laughter in the universe. Because I thought people are looking so far for, like they like the ego is willing to create a third eye rather than to see its hollowness. The idea of yourself is trying to, in any time it is seeking a belief, it has already entered the belief. Where your attention goes, the world manifests. Your attention is like that, like gardener, wherever you watered, suddenly plants where he's like, okay, this is not like these plants are growing too quick, but this is fun, you know? And so that man became the gardener that reminded the world that just like how it's natural for an atmosphere to come into place around the planet, it is also natural for a subjective idea of the self, a subjective I thought, to come and surround your world. Thoughts are in some sense the atmosphere of the inner realm. For me, thoughts are not mine. You can't own thought, because all that you control, all that your free will is direction. And so we require individuality for direction, just like how creatures on this planet require an atmosphere to exist. So aspects of your intelligence are preserved in ways that they remain dormant until made accessible. So the way I see it is, instead of you thinking you don't know and you need to know, you start thinking you know. Now how do you not know? Right? So when I look at knowledge, I'm not looking like there. I've had humble moments. There's been moments where I've through some sort of text or quote or something, I have just bowed to the moment for being, my eyes to be able to see that quote. And one of those quotes, I'll be honest, it was like the from the Lotus Sutra, I believe, or not Lotus Sutra, from the Diamond Sutra. And from the Diamond Sutra, there's a quote that says, "Keep your mind alive and free. Realize everything connects to everything else. And once the emotions find an alignment with thought, and both of those phenomena finds an alignment with the witness of the moment, you, dear being, have always been your whole moment. Your attention is not just one aspect of your moment, it is the whole moment. Your mind is your God. Yet, the God of the mind is unknown. The cause of the effect now visible, it's as if like an invisible cause of a visible effect. A presence within the heartbeat of the ape. As if the universe is here first, and then come our stories and our beliefs. For me, the humility of intelligence is a sort of, you have achieved happiness, but not through hard work. You have achieved happiness through the recognition of the effortless Tao, of the winds of existence moving into realms of changed design. Even though I've ran 27 laps around the sun, in a world that spins around itself, one can say that what we consider to be the world is a sort of abstract generation occurring due to the orbiting of the idea of the world around the idea of the self, and all ideology is recognized to be orbiting around attention. Attention is divine, ladies and gentlemen. Attention is divine, you know. And the only thing that teachers have said is pay attention, but they never told the kid what attention is, what the value of their inner reality is to a world that can only change if they share it. You know, it's as if like you can, it's like if you know, you can't say you live life if like you never moved, if you never changed. And anybody blind enough to fight change is in some sense lost in a game that can't end, because an eternal attention is choosing to look at a temporal painting. Until that attention moves on, it cannot be anything else. The wheels of karma spin around nothing. And yet the wheel exists, but the center of it is this stillness of position. That when I ask, when it's as if like if I saw God, you know, if like let's have a thought experiment. If God came here right now and you could ask any question, I would say, where are you? Because by that answer, I would know the part of the, in some sense, as if people who worship gods to neurologists were worshiping brains. Yet they did not even, they could not see. And so I'm telling you, matter and mind are dynamic visions. They are dynamic attention, as if in the attention of the world, in the attention of your parents, the child has grown up. For me, life must be honored. It must be felt. You must play with nature and realize the rhythms that it unlocks behind your eyes. Rhythms of a sort of instantaneous knowing of the unknown. That means I realize the only thing I'm 100% sure is that I don't know if I know. And when I acknowledged that within myself, it was like there was a humility underneath the archetype of the cultural value, which is trying to be preserved by various human beings. So back to the idea of the atheist and the theist debating, they are both creatures making sophisticated math noises, yet we're all interpreting. And for me, science is a sort of reductionist method to matter. So what that means is an artist, like, you know, like a child could come and tell its parents, like, I had a dream, I was living on the moon. You know, imagine, I just made that up right now, but I'm like, imagine like if a child came and said this to his parents, the parents would be like, oh, what is it, what a lovely, playful, silly child, you know? And they'll be like, go back to bed, Timmy, like something or whatever. I'll tell you, it'd be one of those things where rather than the parents appreciating the intensity of their child's attention and how their attention is being involved with an activity they're taking seriously, it's as if, do you know why childhood is so valuable? For the parents to be present in childhood? Because the world then becomes a lie once cruelty and suffering is introduced. From the embrace of the Divine Mother, the soldier on the battlefield is born. As if imagine like an ability of a recognition that prior to conceptual agreement, there has to be a sort of conceptual self inquiry and study of the situation. And the most important thing that I see in these atheist debates is that they should then open up this just opportunity for the audience to say what they see. Because what the audience sees is both worlds at once in their world. And you might not believe it, but we're dividing worlds all the time. You're creating worlds all the time. Yet these worlds, they leave the surface of your conscious mind because they are like your subconscious is a bridge between the known and the unknown. So think of it right now. You could be in the brightest room, but you'll be like the mysteries of what your full intelligence as a moment of being is could be hidden from you. They could be lost in the shadows of society's uh, attempt to succeed towards the light. Our species must find an alignment of a subjective and emotional agreement towards one universal vision, where we're all like, as the modern poets say, we're all fucked. you know, what that means is I think of it this way. Let me tell you, this is a good way for perhaps like for someone to explain the idea of civilization. I wake up in the morning and I experience a day of just living. During that day of living, I wonder if chaos is introduced into my consciousness, into my momentary awareness. Does it take the shape of chaos? Is the spirit of chaos evoked? Or do the winds of chaos hit me? Or do the winds of order? So, for example, when I'm giving this talk, I feel a sort of as if nature's rhythm behind my voice. And it's not just from the natural just feeling of the heartbeat. It's just that biology stands in awe of itself to recognize the gaze of another dimension justifying it all. In higher dimensions, we are just non-conceptual space. You're not an individual body. You're right now. Your ego has provided multidimensionality, but when the ego becomes silent, then the true mastery of nature is witnessed within. That's when the secrets of the universe no longer are secrets. You have just reached a point where you see the world and you see the value of an honest moment of observation. And an honest moment of observation is the greatest savior of our species because it will immediately align. It will align the values of the creatures functioning on the surface of this planet. An instant moment of observation. In an instant, you observe that you are the observer. And as you do, you realize beyond the statement. So what I've said so far, it's beyond the notion that's found in the Rig Veda, where they say the mind is a slave to the real. That means if the mind is the collection of senses and their integrative presence and expression, the purpose, it's like you think about not what the words in the dictionary mean, but who wrote the dictionary. But you're doing this of your own memory and subjective structure. And for me, when I'm speaking to you as an advanced communicator. That means I'm acknowledging you as an advanced communication of evolutionary height. You are like one of the most evolved creatures just by being born as a human being. You don't understand this, but you will soon. that there's an inseparability between the individual activity and the cosmic activity, and that is where the annihilation of the conceptual meditation becomes the freedom of the outer world. You pretty much free the world from all the thoughts you're imposing in it, so then you begin to see atoms. You don't. When I say you begin, okay, let me say, you begin to see objects prior to having any meaning. You enter the design realm of your intelligence. When you enter the design realm of your intelligence, it's very fascinating because there's no story. It's just form and shape. And anywhere your attention focuses on, it becomes an inner movie. God asked man, "Why are you still in front of me?" And man responded, "For I am still a slave to my past." There we go. I find the moment science and religion shake hands is when each converts to the other to recognize the dualistic expression of the mind. You have two brain hemispheres. They seem to reflect the reverse of each polar side. That means as if it is suggested through biology, studies done in biology, that the right side of your body is controlled with the left hemisphere of your brain, and the left side of your body is the right hemisphere of your brain, and it's kind of like an X drawn, where you look at the points, the edges of this X. For me, my body, my just existence, materialistic existence, it's art. It's just design. Yet, what the inspiration that makes this design itself, as if nature created what we tried in artificially intelligent to create a creature, to create an AI as able as the human being, as conscious. When we tried to be God, our subjective reality made a sort of ultimatum of a belief. There is a sort of imagery at work behind your eyes. Yet this imagery, which is thought, like if I tell you right now, imagine like a giant apple, like not a giant, like a basketball-sized apple floating, like in front of you in the air. Just imagine that. You can imagine it, somehow you do, but in that moment, suddenly you realize the thought is accessible as a design, yet it is not in the same room as objectivity, as matter. So, like when I'm right now speaking to you, I see this computer right in front of me, right? I can touch the computer, and like I can see this whole live stream, and then there all the ideas I have, where my words are coming from right now as I'm speaking. That space is I can see the thought, yet I am not the thought, because my attention cannot forever be on that thought. So we are a sort of eternal, unknown inspiration for knowledge to change. The scientific mind embraces simplicity, and the religious mind is advised that to, in some sense, live a simple life where God's will is doing all the work. So this is where a sort of worship of simplicity, of the right action, which is found both in science and religion, is the common bridge between the two. That we see that the theist and atheist were just creatures that in some sense saw the world in a way, and they felt the way they saw it was more accurate than the other. Yet they did not realize the world that they saw was only the world that they saw. And I'm not saying that it's like we're in some, hidden solipsist like kind of reality. I'm telling you, regardless, observe your subjective realm, your subjective self. See what it is. You'll discover it as just where your attention is. Then you'll look at your objective self. It's just brilliantly designed already, and you're just observing it grow. So you will only fear like age, like aging, only when you feel you have not watched or observed or appreciated your design, your earlier designs of self, of your objective self. So first there was, the idea of the body was introduced to the child. Then the idea of the mind. Then the idea of the soul. Then the idea of the ultimate emptiness beyond, as if like we can't see that far. And then it was introduced the inner revelations, the idea that we have to accept the moment. We can't go anywhere. We are the moment. And when you realize that, the moment you realize you're the moment, you you cannot judge a changing world. And the theists and atheists that debated, if those two people were to debate again, and they were told to make the same arguments exactly the same way they did, they wouldn't be able to, because they have been changed by the experiences that time bestows. The gift of time is experience, and the gift of experience is a sort of content gratefulness. You cultivate contentment and gratefulness in your life, you're going to live in a beautiful world, both inner and outer. But if you feel the world owed your mind, which is, the idea you have of your mind, which is a tiny part of the world, the whole world doesn't have to listen to a tiny part of it. The world dances. And in this dance, our eyes are open to choose the world's axis, whether it is existential or non-existential. Because there's two types of non-existential reality. One, non-existential reality as if there never was or could be or any sort of concept of existence. And then in another one, the reason we say it's in a realm of non-existence because it's in a dimension that the current existential awareness cannot perceive beyond. So you gotta be playful, and in the authentic natural playfulness, just like trust me, it's easy to be who you are. Just stop doing anything, and you'll notice it. And when you notice the self of selves, which is the presence of the moment, which is the awareness of the whole moment, which constitutes within it a sort of personality, subjective personality, all I can say is the designer of existence was the only truth. What that means is God liked spheres, or spheres somehow are now choosing to see a God. I have this very, very unique hypothesis. Like, it's just my theory, and it's like I have nothing to back it aside from saying that I just got this idea and I felt it could be. That we right now thinking we are in a solar system and a galaxy and a universe is all inside a sun. Like the whole sun, that the central sun, the sun that is holding all that is within it. An echo of burning orbs. Because, ladies and gentlemen, even stars die. Integrative vision is important. And rather than one just trying to find a sort of validation for their subjective reality, because honestly, that's what love has become. Love in the modern era is just people's egos having a little to feed on, you know? What that means is the moment you feel you don't know who you're standing beside, that's when you can't stand beside that person. The reason is simply because the the unknown has given you enough knowledge to know what to do and not to do. Sometimes my decisions are not my decisions, they're just moments of being occurred. They occur to my personality, which it actually is just like uh, a hologram of the true presence, the true being, a state of pure emotion, pure thought, and pure presence. This purity of presence is a laughter outside of the realm of the forest of language. You are free. In your silence, you are nothing and everything. Because your mind works that way, because your mind is your moment. No man can deny chaos and order their gathering. The only solutions that I find work are new solutions, and to cultivate new solutions, we have to create an environment where the brightest states of intelligent curiosity are utilized. Imagine some inventor managed to create a technology that human beings never had to work again. They would, in some sense, they were, in some sense, machines were doing everything, and all they could do was just sit, and with one touch of a button, everything would be done. In such a reality, the lies of one world become the truth of the next. The caterpillar experiences walking with many legs just to metamorphosize into a butterfly to experience the winged dimension. Believe it or not, I thought I was the universe, like what we think we are as creatures is actually thoughts of the universe. And these thoughts range to like 100 years. That means imagine right now your thoughts were alive and they only lived 100 years or around that age and then they died. And so it's as if like sometimes there are people, I'm pretty sure in the religious reality there are, there are religious people who look at the world and they're like God. Where are you? Which in some sense implies, where is the divine will when the idea that has naturally come to me requires it? And so one begins to see if the divine will could be explained, it would be a lie. Because your thoughts do not define you. You define a moment of being that was always a moment of being. So it's as if, like in the battles of religion and science, the mystic on top of the mountain watched at this massive war in history and shouted. He shouted not at the people fighting, he shouted at the sky. And he said, oh limitless truth, why has the species decided to break itself in confusion and violence? And in the tears of a universal observer, the universe is given a chance. Novelty brings forth the ultimate self. Words become lifetimes, passing in an instant. Once you tap to this instantaneous sense of intelligence, your mind is you're gonna feel a bit of disorientation, but that's because it's as if like your soul has decided to sit differently in the vehicle of its mind's body. The universe is not made of stuff because who is seeing stuff? The caterpillar did not believe many other caterpillars that had become already butterflies. The caterpillar said, there's no way me with all these legs can have wings. And then the butterfly that was there, that was looking at that caterpillar, said, yo, caterpillar, for how long do you want to walk in the shoes of different senses of self that are in some sense responses of an ever-present moment to one moment, to an environment? Sometimes my rage, I feel I am, it's kind of strange, but society is a world where the realms of it's a sort of inner submission to values that allow the collective to thrive. And this inner submission means that you could be a violent person. You could be a person with up and down emotions and intense expressions. But you will see, we are a young species, my friend. Dear listener, we are a young species. We don't know, a lot of the world is still in the dark. And we are just lanterns and candles that are just awake for a little while. And when I realize I am awake in the world once every day, the days and nights became inseparable. For me, I became a creature of energy, not a creature of stories. As if all my stories were just this one moment of energy. And this one moment of energy was not being constantly contained by a personality. There's a freedom in that. As if that bird flying in the darkness of an early morning suddenly began feeling the warmth upon its wings, and it was as if there was a faith, a hope, there was an allowance. Rather than we were created here, we were allowed to be here. And when I say we, I mean we each person I'm speaking to right now, like anybody who hears this Mr. Within talk, um, there's a world behind your eyes. Not just a world, many worlds. Many worlds that have passed your awareness. Your mind is so sophisticatedly polished by life's turbulence that you will tap into it. You will realize that it's like it's not that just because we became more civilized, the animalistic instincts found in not wanting to learn from the environment to survive better in the environment, like that evolutionary pattern, it is still going on, as if that app is still open on your iPhone, you know. While other apps are open, while other applications of momentary views on self are trying to find their conclusions. A thought is like a subjective echo. It requires to reach the end of its story, or it will crave its purpose, or diminish in nostalgia. For me, you must you must see this world and allow it to be free, and then your sense of self will be free. Because if either one of these, either like if we brought world peace right now, you could still be a person living in a peaceful world, still not seeing peace. You could still be burdened. And so these subjective burdens can, in some sense, evaporate into the present moment of clarity. For me, the enemies of today, the people who are fighting one another, their grandkids will become best friends. Their great grandkids will become best friends. Because they will discover the greater wars ahead. We are still, like, believe it or not, a species playing with toys. We have not still found the sophistication to study beyond our knowledge. And there are ways beyond it. That's just like any sort of mystical tradition that's been, in some sense, sprouted in history, in the soil of history, where there is not just seeds planted, but there's the bloodshed of confusion. The greatest ideas must find the global stage, and people must realize they're not just bodies, they are the greatest idea that they can contribute. The end of the world was coming the moment the world began. Smile at the moment, or as the moment. For before we were people, we were nature's laws, collectively present. We were the world before we were the person in the world. And so, when Christ said the kingdom of heaven is within you, and when Carl Sagan said you're made of star stuff or stardust, dust can only accumulate on a star only in the mind of man and the subjective mind. As if I'm telling you, your thoughts, what we consider to be creativity, is the recognition of both hemispheres of the brain as one moment. You have two eyes that see the same, see the same. You have two dimensions of your existence in the moment. One subjective, one objective. And guys, there's a reason I really emphasize this in these talks, because it's as if Ask yourself, who am I? And then see beyond the eyes of the past and the eyes of the future. Heaven and hell are the two sides of an unspeakable coin. Reason and creative randomity are two sides of the same coin. The past and the future are two sides of the same coin. And all you share in common with every memory and idea that you have experienced is your presence. You were just present there. Your body changes, your thoughts change, or whoever you think you are in this moment will change, yet your presence and its existence, your existential presence has always been made aware of in your waking state. Kiss the world. And love the show of existence on the stage of emptiness. Smile at the brilliance of every day's design. If every day becomes an eternal moment for you, problems were solved in a sense by having never existed. And I'm speaking about subjective problems, like I see a lot of people talk about stress, uh, depression. I noticed these in Jordan Peterson videos, and the amount of views they get, I was like, okay, this dude's saying some important stuff for as a social contribution. But what I began to see is that the mind is the unknown is here. We are the unknown in the known. Your true intelligence is unknown. Your ego is a changing world. And only now has the ability to change nowhere to now here. You are free before you could not be. Much blessings and namaste. And I guess one thing I would say is that when science and religion shake hands, nature's common expression is the moment. It's cherished and celebrated as if human beings celebrate the victory of the most important war. the war of the past to be the future which they never could. Don't be reckless, for you do not know how tomorrow will approach you. Do not be stubborn or arrogant, for you do not know how tomorrow will approach you. Be happy, because in happiness you are free. You are free. And your mind's freedom is very important. You might not believe this, but in many countries around the world, there's a sort of censorship of people's minds by limiting the truth of the world. You are an eternal born moment. I hope this talk has served you. Much blessings and namaste.